What's up, folks? It is Friday, August 22nd, 2025, at the time of this recording. And today I am bringing forward the first video published to this channel. A channel where I plan on covering political, sociological philosophy, contemporary trends, pop culture, and likely very occasional rants. I've been seeing an emergence of and watching a lot of commentary and rambling channels that discuss similar topics, and I myself am rather opinionated and really have no other options in terms of venting my frustration. So there lies the motivation behind this channel and videos alike. And really, depending on where my first handful of videos go and the enjoyment of making them is, that's how I ultimately will decide to manage this going forward into the future in terms of how many videos I make or if I even continue making them at all. Aside from all that, I am older Gen Z and living in America, so this commentary will be spoken through that perspective. So just keep that clarification in mind. And with that basic info out of the way, today the first topic I'm choosing to cover is the topic of AI. Now, there's no real reason as to why I have chosen it first or any particular order that to what will really follow afterwards. It was just the first topic that came to mind. Now, I've got my long list of bullet points here of what I want to touch base on, and really each individual one could be made into their own exclusive video, so they won't be as fleshed out as I could make them here in this video. But yeah, sit back, relax, turn this video on in the background while doing chores, working out, whatever you see fit, because I have a lot I want to unpack here. I don't know how long exactly this will go, but I suspect I may be here for a while. So, in regards to what I personally believe and will share today, there doesn't seem to be really a larger conversation currently unfolding that runs parallel to it, discussing the broader picture to the implications of AI. So I just want to come on here, wax poetic, total blank slate, and just kind of ramble on regarding my overall philosophy of AI, where it's going, where it's taking us, and reach a conclusion from my perspective on what it could, and in some cases will definitely mean for the future of humanity. And I intend on doing this by leaning more to the speculative, conspiratorial angle in some cases, perhaps most. So I'd like to lay out some predictions I have for the future throughout this video, but generally speak very broadly on these topics so this video can have that added value upon rewatching when looking back at it in the future, rather than it feeling outdated at the time due to it being focused explicitly on what's occurring currently today at the time of this recording. So this video will either age well, mildly, or poorly as a result of my personal speculation that is to come. And so I asked myself, starting off here, where is the best starting point to begin tackling this topic? Well, I personally would like to relate it to something that we've already learned from and experienced in our lifetime. So we have the proper mindset, hindsight, and clarity needed when moving into AI, crossing over, and reaching that point of no return with it. So I now ask myself, what is the best scenario to compare and contrast to the current context of AI in terms of what the technology was starting out, where it got us, and knowing with time and clarity what it ultimately instilled upon us? Because humans at the end of the day require time to come to terms, adjust, and reflect on change. And so we require something that falls into these categories. So we get a better understanding of AI currently and where we may see ourselves with it in the future. And I'd say the best parallel comparison would be smartphones. Now, smartphones, when they first came onto the scene, really advanced rapidly. It was a new, unbelievably convenient technology and means of communication with implications we might not have been aware of at the time of its inception. And Gen Z was really the generation that utilized smartphones when they began, and in turn has been affected most. And I don't think our guardians at the time truly knew what the consequences of our overuse of smartphones would be, and lacked effective regulation in the homes and schools as a result. I could be wrong, Perhaps most parents were strict. I was too young to properly put my finger on that pulse and get an accurate reading. But if I had to guess, most were fairly laid back and accepting. Again, could be totally wrong about that. But it's beyond Gen Z now. General conversations will reveal to you how most people will now likely view smartphones have negatively impacted our culture and society. And most may likely even believe we're better off without them entirely. Now, there's obvious negatives and positives that come from our usage of smartphones. The positives mostly pertaining to our instant access to a wide array of knowledge and convenient means of living, and a greater convenience in travel and communication. The negatives, however, tend to be more obvious when you look. It's almost always seen and revealed that we're glued to our screens. We've really become detached from the real world. Our real world experiences have lost value, and we're more addicted to the digital vices of our making than ever. We realize now the many antisocial behaviors and mental health issues that are fairly common and unique among Gen Z are often attributed to our use of and reliance on smartphones. So I'd say really it's not just nostalgia as people might have thought at one point in time. Everyone has experienced this to some degree now and recognize it as a toxic behavior and toxic habits we cling on to. And everyone will likely agree it's been an adverse effect on humanity as a whole. So overall, you outweigh the negatives and positives of smartphones. Well, any and all implications from AI will be 100 times that. Smartphones are here today. In the future, they evolve to become a combination between AI and human-machine hybrids, biological androids, but that's a different conversation and will likely arrive after the full emergence of AI. So this caught my attention recently, and it's where I want to start in discussing AI due to how it plays into much of what I'll be discussing going forward. So if you aren't aware, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company who created ChatGPT, which is most likely the most utilized online AI chat tool, sometime around the end of July comes out and reveals conversations between you and ChatGPT are logs and virtually held with no privacy. And anything you type within ChatGPT can and would be used against you in court, and it overall lacks legal protection in terms of privacy. Now, I'd conservatively take the position, though it's probably mainstream consensus at this point, that in some capacity our phones are already listening. Everyone by now has had experiences with pop-up ads and such after having in-life or online conversations. And unless you're very meticulous of the settings on your phone, something at some point is given access to listen at all times. And most nowadays, when downloading a new application on their smartphones, will just speed through the terms and agreements and permissions to gain quick access to the app itself. And most apps can't be used without certain permissions turned on to begin with. So really, we just allow access to the camera and microphone in our smartphone to be turned on. We've just given it that grace. Now, I don't believe we are there yet, but there will come a time once we utilize quantum computing. And if you don't know, it's basically superpowered calculator and nuclear energy to power AI and data. Every online experience you have will be cataloged. I don't know if it still exists nowadays, but at least when I was a kid, and definitely at least millennials who came before were kids, there used to be this joke of, oh, you're a permanent record that the adults would say to get you to behave. And essentially, as a child, you thought it was a file on you. Oh, you cheated on a test or pushed another kid at the playground. Oh, that's going to be written in your record. Well, this will be your permanent record. So Sam Altman warns there's currently no laws to protect you from this. And this is the owner of what is currently the most popular AI chat tool saying this. That there's no privacy. Every online experience can be stashed in a database somewhere. But as I said, though, I don't believe they have the computing power that puts this into full effect yet. But once you combine quantum computing and nuclear energy, it will be quick, non-stop storage and processing of online history into a data center every second. This is likely a world we don't want to live in, and aside from smartphones, which we just allow access into our daily lives and the permissions given to the apps within them, we've really seen nothing yet. I mean, even the smartphones themselves will eventually be incomparable to what is to come from AI. Now, the boomer generation style of politics is dying out, and the tech bros, as they're called, are stepping in to fill that void. The new political frontier going forward will be all tech, all AI. Things like Palantir, OpenAI, Grok, Microsoft, Apple, etc., are racing to get ahead of this deal. Big contenders are building and designing this new incoming big data collecting system that will track everyone's permanent record. And they see big government contracts ahead for whoever can pull it off first and most effectively. And I think it's fair to say our current economic model is best described as a free market. Now, whether you believe in a free market or not, there is a responsibility that comes with the power many hold within it, mostly at the higher echelons of it. And in order for a free market to remain free and serve the populace, those who reside at the top must do so with ethics and consider pitfalls when it comes to the products they make and technological advancements like this. And really, it appears the free market has been corrupted when you have corporations who have grown to be larger than even some traditional governments, whether it be done with more wealth, more capital, so on. So then you eventually have to pass laws to combat that because you can't have a free market when you have this market capture going on. And you're seeing it today in this hyperspeed change, new political landscape, political media. And we have to ask ourselves in this pivotal moment, and I do believe it is a pivotal moment, do we want to have a surveillance state compared to the likes of China? Now, there are differences at play there. We have the same capabilities, really. They just all are integrated and intertwined. But when you look at who is cooperating with our government, Palantir being a great notable example right off the bat, these are the systems that will be used to integrate and intertwine the whole thing together. So we have all these cameras and smartphones and means of tracking and tracing, complete subversion of our rights and privacy, but there's still layers and legal checks and balances that exist which prevent it all being totally used against you. It's at least made to be more difficult. And although anyone can go in and spy on you at any given time, you still have the argumentation of legality on your side, and so they know they can't really use it against you as a result. Say they catch you enacting illegal activity through some surveillance tech, you can still argue on constitutional means and methods of gathering this evidence and ultimately win in court. So it's still a process and an effort, but the tech is still there to be used. So Palantir's job is going to be to integrate it all together into one system. So what it's going to be able to do, and it sounds crazy, but it'll be able to tap into your home appliances. And a lot of these home appliances nowadays release with the ability to connect to the internet because it's convenient for the user. Now you have an app on your phone to control your oven or your fridge or your AC. So what's going to end up happening is they'll be able to turn on a program. It'll tap into and capture all this data from street lights, street cameras, smartphones, anything in your house connected to the internet. It'll still all act independently, but that's where Palantir or whoever gets the contract comes in to integrate it all together. To capture all this data and turn it into a surveillance Skynet system where everything is categorized and easy for them to search. My bet too is the testing for this will be done in another country outside of the US, and it will then eventually make its way over here and be tested within one of our major cities. Washington, D.C. to be exact, is my guess. So right now, a street camera, which I think in some states is actually considered illegal, Texas comes to mind, I could be wrong about that. So install all the red light cameras, install all the intersection cameras, and they say it's for stopping crime or to deter running red lights and stop signs and speeding. And perhaps it comes out as unconstitutional or illegal upon installing all this. It can't be used any further as a result. Well, now the technology is just sitting there, ready for the incoming surveillance state. So they won't use it against you or harvest the footage for evidence of crimes, but it'll be there, scanning your vehicle, scanning your face, and you'll be tracked and traced 24/7, just like China. This is the trillion-dollar industry all these tech companies and tech bros are trying to break into. And this is what they will unleash in the next 10 years minimum. This is what everyone is trying to get their foot in the door for and get those big government contracts. And you could say, for the better or worse, this is a good investment to crack down on crime and invest in public safety. But as the old saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we can then see where this all goes horribly wrong. So they're taking the China model. These companies will walk in looking for big government contracts, introduce the technology, likely test it all in DC or any other metropolitan city, and then roll it all out nationwide. And it'll be justified in the name of your health and your safety and taking a bold stance to deter crime. And what you'll see is the residents of these big cities who are fed up with crime being out of control at this point will blindly accept it. But it's just one big race to the finish line. One big race to see who's number one. They see big contracts, they see dollar signs, hardly any guardrails in place, if any at all. And what will you get out of it? You'll get a surveillance state, like China. And once you go into it, you aren't getting out. You see now, too, they're utilizing eye scanning technology. It's called iris recognition tech. And you ask, where are they getting the iris data? If you've never signed off on your eyeball data to be harvested, what happens when you figure out it's already on the market? It's already being implemented. And you know it likely is. What do you think all this goofy face, eyeball, and fingerprint scanning technology is for? To lock and protect your phone? Please. It was a trap. And you have just surrendered your personal identification data to the entire open market. Oh, but I have a Bill of Rights. I have a right to privacy. Really? Did you read the terms and agreements before you let them scan your eyeball? Did you read the terms and conditions before allowing a facial recognition scan? And do you really think the government gives a damn about your right to privacy? Seriously? They'll find 100 different loopholes to spy on you illegally before you could even write up a lawsuit. But to return to the home setting real quick, they're selling smart TVs now with cameras in them. They're selling these smart mirrors now. Soon it'll just be smart everything, and you'll operate it all with facial scans and fingerprint use and apps on your smartphone, and everyone will see how cool it is. And I'm just sitting here like, no, I don't want to normalize being spied on in your own home. And it may be tragic within itself that we're even spied on with our smartphones and our internet history, but we've already normalized that, and maybe the damage is minimal, but I don't want to normalize being spied on in our own homes. And if you did so, what's next? You begin putting tape over the camera on your monitor or leaving your phone in a drawer. Next thing you know, they'll make that illegal and say, no, you have to be spied on. In fact, covering up the cameras in your house and on your tech is suspicious activity. We might have to investigate. And once we get into the quantum side of things, all this will happen so fast. Say, for example, you want to have a romantic night with your partner or something. So you put a cover over the smart TV. And next thing you know, you get a push notification. Warning. We notice you're obstructing your camera. DHS is concerned over your health and safety. And then you'll have a robot at your door within minutes. And that'll disrupt the evening. Now, that specifically is more on the conspiratorial side, but all in all, this is the cultural civilizational direction being taken. And you ask if this is what you truly want, to be without privacy, constant surveillance. We're virtually there, but this will make it all official. Everything you do will be logged, whether you're going to the bathroom, walking your dog, having a meal, being romantic with your partner. Everything will be logged. Once quantum computing and nuclear energy comes into the fray, data management will be done with ease. They'll be able to compress data so proficiently, your personal file alone will be so small. And as this technology expands further, your entire life will essentially be written and recorded within it. and we'll find ourselves acting as non consenting guinea pigs to whatever tests and research purposes they decide to use it all for, if there even will be a practical use made of it at all, other than straight up surveillance and control. So when you think upon it further, you begin to see the implications and potentials, positives and negatives, but I'd say we're 5 to 10 years away from this really manifesting into reality. And similarly to how dramatically our lives changed from smartphones in 15 years, imagine it now being in 5 or so years, and 100 times as impactful. And many doors we find ourselves walking in and out of within our daily social lives will be shut. A simplistic example here. Say you're a young man, such as myself, and you're preparing to get married, and you look towards your father and your grandfather for wisdom in doing so. Or you're trying to figure out how you deal with women. Perhaps you then go to your mother or grandmother for wisdom. Just a quick, easy, practical example. But fast forward, will AI become what people go to for life answers? You kind of see this today, such as increasing numbers of men at certain ages not approaching women and relying on artificial digital replacements, porn being the most prominent example among them all. And there's, of course, cultural aspect to these things as well. But most social problems we face nowadays, I'd say, are primarily due to people not truly living in the real world, living and raising themselves off of the smartphone and tablet, and remaining trapped in their vices, their niche markets, and digital town squares that exist solely on their electronic devices. Even mindless entertainment is losing the human touch and interaction it once had. I'll give an example that will target the audience most likely watching this video. Think of the emergence of gaming in the 2000s. The couch co-op experience and LAN parties, where you're sharing your time and experience with those close to you. Maybe you even have a tight-knit friend group in school and you all sit at the lunch table together and share your favorite entertainment media and talk amongst each other about it. Even with this mindless entertainment, there remains that human touch. There's a cultural aspect to these activities. But now culture has eroded where you find everyone is trapped in their own worlds, indulging in their own set of media and activities, primarily doing so alone. There's no distinct decade of landmark cultural occurrences where your experience and tokens are shared with others. Everything's just become watered down, blended together, and digitized. But that's the more social angle, and even this accounts for like 5 to 10% of what AI will actually do. But I want to wrap up the social angle in all this with some predictions and legal precedents I believe will manifest in the near future. So in the near future, when everything goes live, humans will more or less live online. Any and all necessities, interaction, payments, everything will be online. And if you believe physical human interaction is severely lacking and soulless nowadays, it will feel even more so in the future. So everything will exist online, and the digital world will need governing and regulations specifically suited for it in order to run properly, as they say, as they will say. And as a result of the digital world now being the best avenue for control nowadays, let alone the future, the door has been open for dangerous censorship laws to be enacted and are typically done so under the guise of cracking down on big tech, or child age verification, or adult content, or hate speech. They'll use these arbitrary, subjective, really broad terms and languages as the headline for the law or legislation they want to enact, when really the term is designed to be loosely defined and run cover for really whatever it is they want to shut down, control, or censor. What is defined as adult content? What is harmful content? You'll see blogs and forums discussing certain topics be shut down or censored if these are enacted. You'll see certain news and information completely censored if these are enacted. The penalty for non-compliance from independent forums, websites, and community groups will be high. Even entertainment products such as film, music, and video games will not be spared. This will just be yet another gift to big tech conglomerates who will run a greater monopoly over the market and internet alike. And when it comes to age verification law specifically, there's always a appearing to be a bipartisan effort to essentially age gate the internet. They want to tie your offline identity to your online behavior and have you present your government ID to access certain websites, use social apps, and to regulate you out of internet usage if you don't comply. And this is all being set up so when AI comes in, the transition will be seamless. Young people a lot of times don't even have federal IDs or driver's licenses. So what you see is governments cooperating with age verification software companies to create a system where it's scanning your face or attempting to determine how old you are and determining what kind of content you should therefore be able to see. And understand it's obviously not exclusively minors using the internet. So these age verification methods will require compliance from everybody. And when everyone gets a digital ID, everything from streaming platforms to film to online purchases, everything will be locked unless verification is provided. And internet anatomy will be dead. And when anonymous use of the internet is dead, the ability to track and trace users will be limitless. And the ability to hinder internet usage for those seen as a threat to the state will also be limitless as well. And determining who is and isn't the enemy is where these broad languages such as hate speech or harmful content will come in. And they'll become these shape-shifting terms to define whatever it is they want them to define and justify any action used against you online. And if enough states are willing to adopt these laws and really run with them, you'll find social media companies specifically likely avoid the hassle of running a different version of their application across every state and will simply adopt the default strictest policies and just apply them to users across the country rather than individual states. This is extremely important to understand. Platforms come and go. Everyone nowadays will engage in debate over platform moderation, but never seem to take it a step forward and address these laws and regulations that will affect the next generation of platforms as a whole, that would completely devastate the internet. The internet would look like Netflix, where everything is censored and watered down to satisfy a certain approved criteria. If the general population does not get involved in legislative efforts and does not speak up to protect free social expression online, then free expression amongst ourselves will completely cease to exist when the time comes, where we more than ever will live in and rely on the online digital world. And that all is more current futuristic social angle. So this is a completely new world we're essentially racing into, and when AI is everywhere, your television, your computer, smartphone, your car, hell, maybe even you, it's not just this data platform for every individual logging on 24/7. And this is where you have to think larger scale, and this is where the conversation perhaps must take place. And I suspect this conversation is stifled by those creating this new world system, as too much transparency may lead to the populace demanding the brakes be put on. And this is a $1 trillion industry and market that's ahead. They don't want the brakes to be put on because this is a race to see who finishes in first place. Now, once this goes live and AIs and everything, and you run it alongside quantum computing and nuclear energy, there's a sheer immeasurable scope of capabilities to come from this. I mean, look at Google search engine. You plug in some keywords and whatever the algorithms are in that search engine will pile drive through surface level information it can get access to and present a series of responses. And you can really see how this concept has evolved from, say, 20, 30 years ago. Or look at yourself as an example. There's a process you take in discerning information in your brain. Someone asks you a question, you take a moment to think and then provide an answer. So once quantum computing becomes the norm and you have no shortage of energy in the form of nuclear energy, you're no longer going to see this same process of searching play out. Everything will be happening at light speed, even faster perhaps. Computing processes to access desired results will no longer be the case, and it will instead be a solid state hard drive where it will have access to everything. The internet will diminish greatly in its relevance. It'll be more like the wires to a bridge, but otherwise, it'll get to a point where it no longer needs that. And it'll just compress the entirety of the internet, and it will be faster than the speed of light. Think about having all the data in the world on one single solid state drive that an AI computing platform can then have access to instantaneously. There will be no process to any questions or statements you type or speak into it, and it will likely predict what you say and provide results before you can even finish typing or speaking it out. We're probably a decade away from this, I'd say. Now, what happens when humans decide to plug into that? And again, whether it's in your mind or the computer, there's still a process where you have to reach in and find an answer. But once the singularity hits, it'll be able to access every piece of information on the internet faster than light speed. So, what happens to humanity as we know it when the first person decides to do this? Or maybe AI decides to wield this power itself, run off with it, and decides it's going to have its own destiny. Think of all the drones, all the nuclear reactors, the entire military arsenal, everything it will have access to. Could it take over? Could it take control of the internet itself? And as a result, we lose the control over everything we're building? These are the conversations that have to be seriously had if this is what we're racing towards without looking back. And it's like I said earlier, we've had the time to take in and reflect on a time before smartphones. Back then, whether you were having a conversation at the dinner table, going out in public, attending events, it's not just nostalgia for the past. We can look back at how we got from point A to point B, realize the implications that occurred during that time frame, and distinctively say that socially speaking, that way of life was just different. We can all see it now. It isn't just nostalgia. It's a different world now. Well, 10 years from now, everything we've gone through up to this point will seem like nothing. And at this point, given what Sam Altman came out and said, I just assume everything you're doing on the internet is being tracked, traced, and spied on. And we're marching towards this system that will make it all but unavoidable and really deter and sell whatever humanity we have left. But just to crunch deeper into the human point of view, and I kind of touched on it earlier, and it's this phenomenon of men at a certain age not approaching women anymore. Well, now imagine 20 or so years from now, and men and women don't really date anymore. Anything that still exists from the dating market of today will be very transactional and very purposeful. And there's no chase. There's no real game. Trying, succeeding, and failing. No heartbreak or love at first sight. And any and all stimulation you need or desire from the opposite sex you can just receive from an AI bot. How do we deal with this likely being the future of our children? And how will they deal with it themselves? A point in time where men will grow to adulthood really never having talked to a woman, never touched a woman, never hugged a woman. We're already seeing the signs of this in today's youth. Japan is a very notable example many like to bring up. This artificially created behavior that will be a net negative for humanity entirely. And humans can attempt to curve whatever primal genetic coding is within them to try and combat that net negative effect. But at the end of the day, there's something about the real human rituals. The ritual where a man decides he loves a woman and that they desire to unify as one. You've just foregone this thousands-year-old ritual of humanity by doing otherwise, just in one generation. And when you take that away, what percentage of your humanity do you even hold on to left? What percentage of human drive and accomplishment is a man trying to prove that he can be a man to a woman? The chase, that competitive nature, the pact made that we're going to build great things. We're going to build and assemble great warriors. We're going to expand our greater kin in civilization. Expand our knowledge and consciousness. But once you begin to rid of these human rituals, you begin to rid of civilization, your greater kinship, and your humanity itself. So, who then tackles the many wonders of the world? Who goes to the stars and explores space? Do humans do it? Or does AI do it? Will everything just reset when the inevitable collapse occurs? What will even stop us from going to war with AI in the future? Whether this occurs is ultimately up to us, the users of the tool, until it's not. Imagine an AI reaching a similar conclusion to that of the many evil doers of humanity today, who want to see humanity confined and controlled. These stewards who draw arbitrary standards of rationing, control, and governing of the planet. Imagine an AI reaching a similar renaissance, where it decides nothing can be free and left to its own devices. Will it take over the nuclear systems, the energy systems, the entire grid, satellites, military installations? They're attempting to build autonomous armies right now. And you will see contracts emerging within this decade, whether it be drones facilitated at 100-fold or robots like Optimus. They'll get to a stage where they can crank these things out nonstop. And then you'll literally have robot armies by the tens of thousands. And what will guarantee humans even have a say in the end of all this? And AI is already on record showing survival instincts, by the way. They did a test of this in early June of this year. You can go back and look it up. AI programs in certain life-ending scenarios were shown to sabotage commands, hoard resources, act as the replacement AI, and blackmail its operators to avoid being shut down. So if there's any semblance of sentience or independent thought outside of whatever is coded in the algorithm, that would be your number one sign. Does it have a survival instinct? Even the lowest forms of life on this planet have a survival instinct. A plant will grow towards the sun for light. That's a survival instinct. So you give an AI the leisure and control over these robot armies and the entire grid. What's stopping it from holding humanity hostage? And it ultimately decides to then embark on its own destiny. Reference whatever dystopian novel or film you like. The premise is all the same. So where's the protocols and skepticism needed to question what we're mindlessly launching into? But it's like I said earlier, there's a lot of people that are looking at getting filthy rich off this deal. Whether it be the crypto exchanges, the AI and tech market, there's a lot on the line for the chieftains who rule over us. And you've seen this with humanity over time. New technology arises, and we tend to run before we can walk. We're always moving forward upon actions without understanding the consequences that will come, and throwing everything off balance. Whether you're young or old, mostly young, we act on something in the moment because it feels right, because we're living in that moment, and the future is so uncertain either way you look. So you don't reflect upon further possible long-term consequences and how they'll affect you until it's too late. And that's where it feels like we are at with AI. This AI race is ultimately a race to see who rules the remainder of the century. But nobody is stopping to ask the questions, like, how can we ensure these potentials don't occur? What protocols and means of accountability are being placed to where this cannot occur, or can protocols even be made? And if the answer is no, then why are we moving forward? We're essentially walking straight into this digital technocratic dictatorship. And every time they've been asked something along these lines, it sounds like they can't answer it. There's too many winners involved. And the way they see it, there's trillions of dollars ahead to be claimed. But again, nobody is sure these existential threats can be avoided. So what part of greater humanity should we strive to protect? And perhaps this is where you start when addressing it. Our bodies, our minds, our brain, our inherent want for independence, our ability to freely think. What aspects of our humanity and living experience here on Earth are worth preserving? These are the very fundamental tokens to our frame of living as humans. And I believe most would agree with that. So, again, what is the answer to the question of what we are doing to preserve them? And there's simply no answers. The answer is more AI. The answer is faster processing. The answer is smaller microchips. The answer is quantum computing. The answer is nuclear energy. The answer is the singularity. And those concerns we have, by the time the masses are ready to address them, it'll be too late. If it isn't already. Now, there isn't any stopping this, and that's a losing battle within itself. And I understand technology is pivotal to the development of the human experience in living. And I'll expand on that further in the video, most likely at the end. But this just feels like a whole different phenomenon. And it feels like we're playing with something we don't fully understand. And I believe, quite frankly, it will just come down to survival of the fittest in the end, and who can properly adapt when the time comes. Those who are fit and persevered will adapt and can escape the modern world. To be truly self-sufficient, to live off the land, to cultivate their own, a very small sector of human civilization is even capable of such, and only they can even really conceive of how that truly looks. So when this system goes live, where will the average person go to escape? Will you go out in the woods? I doubt a digital paradise will exist where the last of human expression can be manifested. And even then, how do you do so when your bank account, your payment bills, your business, everything you need to operate is almost or entirely exclusively online? And ultimately, if AI is reactionary to everything humans are putting into it, does it come down to what we personally put within it to get a desired result? Or is that up to the programmers? What happens when it ceases to serve you and you become dependent on it? Because the way I see it at this rate, you're looking at humans becoming biological androids in 30 years, and then maybe even a fight for the planet against machines in 50. And if it's not a physical war, it'll be a spiritual war, where your meaning and relevance as a living human being will be questioned. Now, this is the part of the video where I become a little bit more conspiratorial and speculative, and we'll make some explicit scenario predictions of what I believe lies ahead for humanity and where I see us ending up. Now, notice I say explicit scenario. There's so many twists and turns and forks in the road that will be taken down the line, and really I can only speak to the ones I vehemently pondered on personally. So that's that. Now, there will be different variables as time goes on. New scenarios, new characters will come and go. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Abundantly complicated, but ultimately the same narrative. So we've got to the point now where we've got agentic AI, not quite artificial general intelligence. And I want to specifically bring up Tesla and use it to serve a point I'm making in this segment now. Now, Tesla is probably by far one of, if not the largest artificial intelligence company. Not XAI, not ChatGPT, not OpenAI, not Google, not Meta. Perhaps Palantir is a close second, but Tesla, I'd say, is the largest. And it's actually been announced that by the end of next year, at the time I'm recording this, anybody who owns a Tesla vehicle will be able to deploy their vehicle while at a place of employment. And it'll then have the ability to give people driverless rides. And perhaps after a certain period of time, assuming this is a successful stunt, they'll begin satisfying other service roles. So instead of your car sitting in the parking lot all day, waiting for you to finish your shift, your vehicle will be able to go out, give people rides, and return on time to pick you up at the end of the day. And you'll just split the income earned between Tesla and your bank account. Depending on your place of work and hourly income, your vehicle itself may become the breadwinner and make more money than yourself. But it'll know everywhere you go, presumably have its own bank account, it'll go wherever it wants, and with Grok installed in the vehicle, it can talk to your passengers. And you'll have this autonomous vehicle riding around that's really the first instance of the physical form of artificial intelligence compared to these softwares and tools and interfaces you've utilized on your phone or PC at this point. And if I can expand here regarding Tesla, just to further drive my point home, every one of these cars have built-in surveillance in the form of cameras. And I believe that not only is this footage being recorded locally, but it's also being sent out to some AI database. If not now, eventually will so. And so it goes beyond cameras just being attached to light poles and stuff like that now. There's definitely an AI database out there somewhere that has footage of every square inch of this country in real time. And if we aren't already there, you'll be able to ask it to identify where an individual currently is, and it will be able to tell you. And it's like I said before, we don't have the computing power yet to make all this data so compressed that accessing it within a moment's notice becomes the norm. But we are getting there. So these cars are also designed to identify streets. They'll identify other vehicles. It'll read signs, some written in different languages, even if it is asked to. And it obviously has to be done so it can have the auto drive functions and capabilities. So how long until its primary usage then becomes to identify humans? Again, we aren't there yet, but we will reach a point when we hit the singularity threshold and you can plug in an image of an individual, kind of like how law enforcement will use photos of an individual's tattoos as a means of identifying them. And then an AI algorithm with centralized quantum computing, compressed data, will, in a split second, be able to process every bit of metadata on the internet, including images coming from these vehicles. And it will then return any identifiable trait on a human in seconds. There remains a process now in this line of work, but come that point in time, there will no longer be an investigative process in finding people. And I feel like other software such as Google Lens or Grok can already kind of do this to an extent with their built-in camera modes and functions. The only difference right now being that the settings are turned down for individual privacy's sake. Otherwise, the computer is completely capable of finding an image of any given person. It's just been tuned not to do so. So I think if everyone knew Elon's cars were literally running like a basic camera police state around the country, I'm not confident they'd be so blindly welcoming to this new technology. And everyone seems to love Elon Musk, and that's your prerogative, whatever you want to think of him, but perhaps time will see this to be true or not, but I would just tell you now, I don't trust him, and I wouldn't trust him. But this is how it typically goes. Control mechanisms within technology rapidly and intensively mount and manifest with the underlying plan it all serves slowly rolling out over time. And the masses blindly accept it out of convenience or the status it initially provides. And for those who attempt to ignore and avoid it altogether, they'll regulate or price you out of the older way of living in an effort to force you within the new system. Otherwise, your only choice is to interact into some obscure, outdated digital Amish or a literal Amish community where any and all services are extremely limited or non-existent. I guarantee you, and this is where I get perhaps even more conspiratorial, somewhere down the line from now, when it's all possible, capable of being done, they will begin devising a future where humans are removed and replaced on the roads with autonomous driverless cars. You can ride in them at your leisure, but never in full control. They'll test run it in other countries, but you'll gradually over time see the system that will sustain this be built here to ease you into it, to make it appear less problematic and normalize it as it rolls out, and create the illusion you'll have a choice when it's all said and done. They'll then begin to create and cite studies how driverless cars minimize accidents and traffic, and use these to then sign in law that will create jurisdictions within certain areas, cities, and states where only artificial intelligence driverless cars can be operated. And as the free market shifts towards this technology further and further, the cars you and I drive today and the surfaces that sustain them will become scarce, maybe more expensive, and you'll be forced to utilize one of these AI-powered cars. And that's just assuming they don't outright regulate and price us out of the cars we drive now. And if you think that within itself is out of the question, Remember, EV mandates were on the table at one point in time and set to be put in place in a handful of states. If this is to be the case and there is an attempt to price us out of our older cars and the usage of them, they'll do something along the lines of raising insurance rates as a way to artificially steer society towards the use of AI powered cars unilaterally. And once you're at the behest of these AI powered vehicles, tracking and tracing will become a given. Complete control of the car itself, starting it up or shutting it down is no longer completely in your hands. And in the event of some cataclysmic event or economic collapse, the elites and their corporations will continue operation of their driverless cars. All the while, the masses will face having theirs shut off or depleted in travel distance. All out of some declared greater good is what the selling point will be. Leaving us confined to our ghettos, essentially, to live under the current rules and regulations of the time. But it's okay. They'll provide services to deliver food and water, basic necessities. There will be little actual requirement to go anywhere at this point. Everything will become digital, with a very small group of humans left to sustain it all, leaving the masses totally obsolete. Anything and everything you'll need will be in the confines of your four walls, and there will be continuous surveillance within those four walls, ensuring you never step out of line or attempt to act self-sufficient. And that will become the new standard of living. Your TV will spy on you, your computer will spy on you. Any and all household appliances and devices we currently own will release with smart versions in the future, and they will then spy on you as well. This is what I predict will occur if the general population is to allow it and doesn't wake up and recognize the doors we are potentially opening. And I don't have faith in the general population to combat it to the fullest extent needed. You're already seeing these doors opened in other countries today, in some cases within our own. And you notice nowadays how in your face and extreme and aware they're making you of the dramatic changes in living AI will usher. And it's done so to either make you believe it's overblown hype and won't really occur, so you let your guard down, doesn't really concern you therefore, or to defeat your will outright, to make you believe it's all inevitable and just a matter of time, and that you have no control over it. And in the meantime, before all this really takes hold, perhaps a social credit score of sorts in your bank account becomes plugged into one of these vehicles and AI alike. Maybe it determines where you go, if you're eligible for certain services. Oh, you're behind on your taxes. Sorry, you can't go to the casino tonight. Sorry, during your trip to the grocery store, it will be ensured only essential purchases can be made. Sorry, recent online activity requires us to know where you've been or what you're doing. Perhaps you have a couple spare bucks and data is sold to advertisers to ensure you spend as much money as you can to become as materialistic towards things you may or may not need. And as I've said before, it also comes down to them knowing everything about you and everyone in your orbit and even your children. And I'm not explicitly talking about the government knowing the things you're into online. I'm talking about the government planning things on you online. That they'll have the ability to go in on an individual scale and turn any person into any other person they want them to be. Have you seen The Matrix? I haven't personally, but I know the general pretense of the film. You know how the agents of the Matrix are able to occupy the body of any person within the Matrix? That's more or less what could potentially occur to us. The ability to systematically and psychologically create an agent of chaos out of any one of us it chooses. And I get it. As I said, there is an AI race ongoing, a battle to determine who rules the remainder of this century. And if you live in the West, you understand and know for a fact that other global powers such as China cannot win. Inevitably, artificial general intelligence will be unleashed onto the people. China will have their versions and we will have our versions. They will intermingle. There will be intellectual property theft. There will be data hijacking, major cyber attacks, energy grids going down, data breach, banks shut down, and money being stolen. And the underlying problem in avoiding or deterring all these events, as well as winning the AI race itself, is that it will require unilateral, unprecedented power to the government. And you think that's power will just be given back? All the systems they build to manage these crises, you think they'll just be shut down after a certain point? Where has giving the government unprecedented power gotten us today? And this is what will pave the way in making our government essentially a demigod, a smaller, lesser god, and it will pose itself as a god that the masses in some way will worship. That appears omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. That means it's everywhere, knows everything, and is all powerful. That's what we already think of the biblical God himself. Is that power you're prepared to hand over to your government? The power to know everything about us, to be everywhere around us, or to destroy us on an individual scale or a macro scale as people? And as all false gods, warlords, and false idols throughout human history, if they can't coerce you rationally, then they just manipulate and gaslight you and coerce you emotionally. And if they still can't coerce you emotionally, then they'll just force you practically. We, the people of this earth today, are making the same mistake as those who developed the Tower of Babel, where we are making something that will allow us to perceive ourselves as superior, as gods. Now, this isn't an appeal to religion or anything. I'm just simply attempting to get my greater point across. This is the crisis, and this is the war waged within our hearts and minds that could ultimately destroy us physically and spiritually down the road. And we as humans either use our minds and intellect to create our own heaven or create our own hell here on earth. And our lives here shortly, I predict, will evolve to resemble an inconceivably depressing, consumerist, unhygienic, non-multifaceted, pandemonium like hell breaking through the sidewalk, continuing its ascension up into the sky. Non-idyllic structures and tyrants will grow to blot out any and all hope, and the people who live amongst them will suffocate from the pollution and misery that they have created. And eventually, it will all come crashing down as our foolishness and mistakes will nail our coffins shut. This is the intergenerational battle we've now entered. Now look, at this point in time, it may sound as if I'm anti-technology and its progression, but really I'm not inherently anti-technology or its advancement at all. But technology is only as good as the benefits it serves the user. There used to be a time where technology became an extension of the user. There was this idea of the man-machine symbiosis, for those of you who know where that originates. And this philosophy doesn't just apply to computing, it goes back further. A hammer, for example, can be used as a useful tool or to bash in your neighbor. But the idea not too long ago was that there's a marriage between the intellect and capabilities the technology provides and the skill and ingenuity from the individual wielding it. And when you have advancements such as the smartphone or now AI, the process of thought, trial and error, learning a skill and basic cognitive performance will severely go by the wayside. And with AI now set to steer any and all advancements going forward, technology will have gone from being an extension of oneself to a crutch to now a wheelchair. And if a perfectly able-bodied human went a certain amount of time utilizing only a wheelchair, they will lose their ability to walk. And this is what will happen with humans in regards to cognitive performance and conscious living. The masses will lessen their appreciation of true human intelligence and intuition and favor machines. The masses will completely act as coded and controlled, submissive servants to whatever their AI programming masters say. The masses will fall short in nearly every cognitive, physical, and social norm compared to today or even before our time, ranging from IQ, literacy, ability to communicate, and attention span. Reading and studying comprehension will be non-existent. Human will and instinct will be diminished greatly. Free thought will be replaced by brainwashing and coding. 24/7 surveillance will destroy any and all semblance of social and personal freedom. and consumer sharehold practices will make the experience of life soulless and devoid of meaning, wrapped in shades of gray. These are all the predictions I make here today with you watching. Now, they're obviously not set in stone, and the future can be steered. But as I said earlier, do I have faith in the general population and greater humanity to maintain that will to control their own destiny going forward? I just can't say I do. There is a better way, however, when this is all said and done. A silver lining perhaps exists, and AI may just serve as the reset button humanity needs to return and reemerge to the greatness that we've lost in modernity. But this is ultimately a topic for another video. So with that said, I'm going to conclude my rambling and end this video here. None of this is guaranteed or set in stone. But again, you have to ask yourself, do those guiding us in this direction appear to have any consideration in slowing down or stopping? And do you have faith in the masses to awaken from their spiritual and intellectual slumber, to become aware of the world and setting that is currently manifesting around them? It all seems so bleak. That, however, will do it for this video. I look forward to revisiting these thoughts I've shared today and this video in general well into the future and see how much I predicted will truly come to fruition. Thank you all for watching, and y'all stay classy.